Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are looking at a source that is, well, it's physically heavy.
Yeah, it's a total brick.
I mean, literally. If you drop the paperback edition of Light on Yoga on your foot, it is going to hurt.
It really is. And, for a lot of people, this is the book that just sits on the coffee table or the bottom shelf.
Right.
It looks very impressive, but maybe it's not getting read cover to cover.
It's intimidating. B.K.S. Iyengar published this in 1966, and it's often called the Bible of modern yoga. But I think for most of us, the barrier to entry is that we pick it up, we flip through it, and we just see the photos.
Photos are iconic.
There are hundreds of them. Iyengar is twisting his body into shapes that look, honestly, biologically impossible. And you think, okay, this is an advanced gymnastics manual. I can't do this.
And that is the primary misconception we need to clear up right away. Yes, the photos define the aesthetic of modern yoga. But the text itself...
Which he wrote after, what, 15 years of practice?
Exactly. 15 years of intense, grueling practice. And the text is not just about gymnastics. It is a rigorous psychological and spiritual manual.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to look past the pretzel shapes and understand the actual system Iyengar is proposing, because he makes a very bold claim early on.
He does.
He says that this physical discipline, the sweating, the balancing, the stretching, is actually a method for curing moral and mental illnesses.
Right. He frames the body as a gateway. You don't do yoga to get a quote-unquote yoga body. You use the body to train the mind to realize the universal spirit.
Okay, so how does that mechanics actually work?
Well, to understand that, you have to start with his core metaphor, which I found fascinating because it's so industrial. He compares the mind to a river.
A river? Okay, walk us through this.
Imagine a mighty river. If it's uncontrolled, just flowing wildly, it can be destructive. It erodes the banks, it floods the villages, destroys crops.
Yeah, or it just sort of disperses into a swamp.
Exactly. It becomes totally useless.
Right, it's unharnessed energy. It's chaotic.
But if you build dams and canals, you control that flow. You create a reservoir. And suddenly, that exact same water prevents famine and generates hydroelectric power. Iyengar argues the human mind is exactly like that river.
So the default state of the mind is that flooding, uncontrolled river.
Yes. It's restless, it flows everywhere and nowhere all at once. Yoga is basically the method of building the dam.
I really like that distinction. It's not about stopping the river entirely.
No, not at all.
Because I think people assume meditation or yoga is about having literally no thoughts. But he's saying it's about channeling the flow so it becomes useful energy rather than destructive noise.
Precisely. It's about potency, not emptiness. But before you can build that dam, you have to understand your water quality. Iyengar spends a significant portion of the introduction diagnosing exactly why we are unable to build that reservoir. He calls them the antarya, or the obstacles.
The diagnosis section. Yeah, this felt like a very ancient, very accurate personality test. He breaks down why we're unhappy or unfocused.
He really does. And obviously the first one is yadi, which is simply sickness. It's very pragmatic.
Right, if you have the flu.
Or chronic pain, yeah.
It is incredibly difficult to concentrate on enlightenment when your head is pounding.
Exactly. But the psychological obstacles are where he gets incredibly specific. He distinguishes between two types of laziness.
I didn't even know there are different flavors of laziness. I just thought I was lazy.
Well, according to Iyengar, there are nuances. There is alajja and there is sthayana.
Okay, let's unpack the difference.
Alajja is what you typically think of. Physical laziness, it's the inertia of the body. You just do not want to get off the couch. It's heavy.
Okay.
But sthayana is much more dangerous. He defines it as languor, or a lack of mental disposition for work.
That sounds a lot like burnout, or that feeling when you have a task to do and you physically can do it, but your brain just absolutely refuses to engage.
It's a paralysis of the will. Iyengar describes a person suffering from sthayana as having no goal, no path to follow, and no enthusiasm. He actually calls a person in this state a living corpse.
A living corpse. Wow, that is brutal.
It's meant to be shocking. He uses another water metaphor here, actually. Water in a ditch stagnates and breeds disease. A mountain stream stays pure because it moves.
So sthayana is the ditch water.
Yes, it's that mental stagnation where you're just doom scrolling or staring at a wall. You're not really alive, you're just existing.
So if you are feeling like ditch water, if we're in that state of sthayana, what is the prescription? How do we get the stream moving again?
The remedy is virya. This translates to unflagging enthusiasm or vigor. But the nuance here is key. It's not about screaming at yourself like a drill sergeant.
Which is usually how we try to fix laziness, right? We just say, get up, get to work, push through the pain.
Right, and Iyengar implies that doesn't work long-term because it just burns you out. He says the attitude of the aspirant should be like a lover ever yearning to meet the beloved.
That is a completely different energy. You're running towards something you want, not running away from failure.
Exactly. He says hope should be his shield and courage his sword. It reframes the discipline from a chore into a romance with your own potential.
You practice because you love the feeling of clarity it brings.
Not because you hate yourself for being lazy.
Right. But enthusiasm only gets you so far if you're dealing with deep-seated pain. The text moves from these obstacles to the klisa, or the causes of pain, and some of these seem unavoidable.
They are deep-rooted. He lists 5, but the 2 that resonate most in the modern world are avidya, which is ignorance, or mistaking the temporary for the eternal.
And the second one?
Abhinavesa, which is the clinging to life or the fear of death.
That clinging seems so hard to overcome. I mean, we are biologically wired to cling to life.
We absolutely are, and that clinging creates anxiety because everything is constantly changing. We cling to our youth, our status, our health, and when those things inevitably change, we suffer.
So how do we treat that?
Well, to treat these anxieties, Iyengar points to Patanjali's fourfold remedy. This is essentially a social code for keeping your sanity while living among other people.
I found this list surprisingly practical. It's almost an algorithm for social interaction. Like, if you encounter X type of person, do Y.
It really is. Step 1 is maitri, friendliness, but it implies a feeling of oneness, or atmiyata. You look at an enemy and you try to see yourself in them to diffuse the hostility.
Okay, step 2.
Karuna, compassion. Now, pay attention to the definition here. It is not just feeling pity.
Right.
Iyengar defines it as compassion coupled with devoted action.
So if you see someone suffering and you just feel bad for them in your heart, that's not karuna.
No, that's just sentimentality. That's for you to make you feel like a good person. Karuna means you use your resources to help them to the best of your ability. It has to be active.
Got it. Step 3.
Mudita, delight. This means finding joy in the good work of others.
Which is the cure for jealousy. That's a tough one. When a peer gets a promotion or succeeds, the knee-jerk reaction is often, why not me?
Exactly. Mudita is training yourself to say, good for them, and actually mean it.
And the fourth one?
The fourth one is the most protective tool in the kit and probably the most relevant for the internet age. It's upekkha.
Upekkha. It translates to disregard.
Disregard. Specifically, disregard for the wicked.
That sounds almost cold. Just ignoring bad people.
It's not ignoring them out of apathy. It's about not becoming entangled in their negativity. If you engage with a troll or someone totally committed to wickedness or drama, you disturb your own mental reservoir.
You lose your peace.
Right, so you practice upekkha, you step back, you don't let their state of mind infect yours.
That is the ultimate don't feed the trolls philosophy.
It preserves your energy for the people you actually can help.
Now, speaking of wickedness and how we deal with it, we have to talk about violence. Because when people think of yogi ethics, they immediately think of ahimsa, nonviolence.
It is definitely the most famous principle.
And the stereotype is this passive, soft-spoken pacifist who wouldn't hurt a fly. But Iyengar complicates this significantly. He doesn't let us off the hook that easily.
He really doesn't. He starts by agreeing that a vegetarian diet is necessary for yoga because killing for food involves violence.
Which tracks with the stereotype.
But then he drops this massive paradox. He writes, bloodthirsty tyrants may be vegetarians.
I love that line. It destroys the moral superiority of the diet in just one sentence.
It forces you to look deeper. He's saying that violence is a state of mind, not just what is on your dinner plate. You can eat a purely sattvic vegetarian diet and still have a mind completely full of hate, judgment, and fear.
So the violence resides in the mind.
Not in the instrument you hold, exactly.
So if nonviolence isn't just about diet or passivity, how does a yogi actually deal with wrongdoing? Because sometimes people do wrong you.
This is one of the most sophisticated insights in the book.
Yeah.
Iyengar contrasts the normal human reaction with the yogic reaction. He says, normally, for a wrong done by others, men demand justice, while for a wrong done by themselves, they plead mercy and forgiveness.
That's the classic double standard. If I mess up, I was tired, I didn't mean it, cut me some slack. If you mess up, you're a bad person and you need to pay.
Exactly. The yogi flips the script. The yogi demands justice for a wrong done by themselves. Strict accountability, no excuses. But for a wrong done by others, they plead mercy and forgiveness.
That is an incredibly high bar.
It is. But he clarifies, and this is crucial, that mercy doesn't mean letting evil happen. He uses the analogy of a mother disciplining a child.
Okay, how does that work?
You oppose the bad habit, you oppose the evil, but you do not hate the person. He writes, opposition without love leads to violence. Loving the wrongdoer without opposing the evil in him is folly.
So you really have to thread the needle, fight the behavior, love the person.
That is true, Imsa. It's active love, not passive acceptance. It takes a lot of courage.
Which leads to the question of lifestyle. If you are practicing this level of discipline, strict accountability, mental control, do you need to just leave society? There's this renunciation myth that to be a real yogi, you need to go to a cave in the Himalayas.
Iyengar is very firm on this. He defends what he calls the householder yogi. He points out that the ancient law codes actually recommend marriage. He says without experiencing human love and happiness, it is not possible to know divine love.
So you can have a job, a spouse, a mortgage, and still reach enlightenment.
Yes. In fact, he implies the challenges of family life are a testing ground for yoga. But it requires brahmacharya.
Which is usually translated as celibacy, right?
Usually. But for the householder, Iyengar reframes it as vitality control. It's not just about abstinence, it's about not wasting energy. He calls brahmacharya the battery that sparks the torch of wisdom.
So you're conserving your potential energy.
Sexual, mental, emotional energy, yes.
Yeah.
You have the fuel to actually do the spiritual work.
And a big part of that fuel is food. We touched on the vegetarian aspect earlier, but he has rules for how to eat that go way beyond just ingredients.
He does. And honestly, this is tough to hear for anyone who considers themselves a foodie or eats for comfort.
Why is that?
Because he says we should not eat for the flavors of the tongue. We should eat purely for sustenance. He points out that humans are the only creatures who eat when they aren't hungry.
Guilty as charged.
He views the body as a rest house of the spirit. You don't trash a rest house. You keep it clean. So the rule is, never overload the stomach. Eating is a service to the Lord. You treat every meal as an offering to the divine within you.
It's mindful eating taken to a completely sacramental level.
Yes. And honestly, all of this, the ethics, the diet, the mental control, it's incredibly hard to navigate alone. This brings us to the role of the teacher. Iyengar places a huge emphasis on the guru.
And he defines guru in a very specific way, right?
Yes. He breaks down the etymology. Gu means darkness. Ru means light. The guru is simply the remover of darkness. But he warns that you can't just intellectually hack this relationship.
You can't just read the books, watch the videos, and become enlightened.
Exactly.
There is a great story in the text that illustrates this. The story of Indra and Virochana.
I love this story. It's the perfect parable for the spiritual tourist versus the true student.
Set the scene for us.
So you have Indra, the king of the gods, and Virochana, a demon prince. They both go to Brahma, the creator, to learn the secret of the supreme self. They sit in the exact same classroom, hear the exact same words, practice the same initial steps.
Same input, totally different output.
Exactly. Virochana is the intellectual. He's curious, he's smart, but he wants power. He listens to Brahma, grasps the concept intellectually, thinks, okay, I got this, and he just leaves. He returns to his people claiming he knows the truth.
And that's the danger of intellectual giantism Iyengar warns about. Thinking you're too smart for the practice, like, I read the summary, I know Kung Fu.
Right, but Indra stays. He reflects on what he learned and realizes he actually has doubts. He realizes he didn't fully grasp it, so he stays and serves the teacher for another 32 years, and then another 32. He uses his heart and his devotion, not just his brain.
He really puts in the time.
And ultimately, Indra gains enlightenment. Virochana remains deluded. The takeaway is that without humility and time, intellect is useless in yoga. You can be the smartest person in the room and still fail if you don't surrender to the process.
And that humility is usually forged on the mat. We have to talk about the asanas, the physical postures, because eventually you have to stop reading and start moving.
And you have to be humble, or gravity will definitely humble you.
Iyengar writes that asanas exercise every nerve and gland, but he insists they are not just calisthenics, they are about disciplining the mind.
He says you use the body to tame the will. If you can hold your body still in an incredibly difficult position.
You're training your mind.
Exactly. You're training your mind to be still in difficult life situations.
Let's look at a couple of specific examples, because his claims about what these poses do are fascinating. Let's start with the big one. Sirsana, the headstand.
The king of asanas.
Why does it get the royal title?
Because the head is the seat of the brain, the seat of intelligence. Iyengar argues that to maintain vitality, we need to flood the brain with a healthy blood supply. He specifically mentions the pituitary and pineal glands, claiming the inversion stimulates them to control growth and vitality.
He claims a headstand acts as a tonic for people whose brains tire quickly, which sounds amazing.
It does. But, and this is where you see the deep dive level of detail in the book, he offers some very specific, slightly graphic warnings. You don't just throw anyone upside down.
I noted this. He says, do not do the headstand if you have a displaced retina. And if you have pus in the ears.
Pus in the ears.
It's such a specific, visceral detail, but it makes sense. If you have an ear infection, inverting yourself is a terrible idea. It shows he's dealing with real human bodies, not just abstract concepts.
He also mentions women during menstruation.
Right. He advises avoiding the headstand during that time, but he doesn't say don't practice at all.
No, he suggests poses like Upavista Konasana, the wide-angle seated forward bend, are actually beneficial then. It's about adapting the practice to the body's state, not forcing the body to fit the practice.
Let's talk about one more pose that everyone knows but maybe doesn't understand, the warrior. Virabhadrasana.
Oh, this one has the wildest backstory.
It's incredibly violent for a yoga pose. I think people hear warrior and they think of a peaceful, spiritual warrior.
No, this is Game of Thrones level stuff. It comes from Hindu mythology. Lord Shiva is enraged because his wife, Sati, has killed herself after being humiliated by her father, Daksa.
A completely tragic family drama.
Yes. In his grief and rage, Shiva tears a lock of hair from his head, throws it on the ground, and from that lock rises the warrior Virabhadra.
And Virabhadra's mission isn't to meditate or talk it out.
No. His mission is to destroy Daksa's ritual and cut off his head.
Yikes. So when you're holding warriors II, burning the thighs, arms stretched out, you are embodying a demon slayer sent to decapitate a king.
You are. But Iyengar connects this to the internal battle. The warrior represents vigor. It represents the courage as a sword. We aren't killing a person. We are cutting off the head of our own pride and ego.
Yeah.
Daksa represents that ego.
That recontextualizes the struggle so much. The burning sensation in your legs isn't just pain. It's the heat of that battle against the ego.
Exactly. It turns the pose into an internal drama.
Finally, we have to touch on the symbol that encompasses all of this. AUM. It's on the cover. We chant it in class. But Iyengar breaks it down almost scientifically.
It's not just a mystical sound to him. It's a triad. AUM.
And what do the three letters represent?
They represent the totality of human experience. A is the waking state and speech. U is the dream state and the mind. M is the deep, dreamless sleep state and the breath.
So when you chant it, you are verbally moving through those states of consciousness.
Yes, but the most important part is what happens after the M.
The silence.
The silence. The visual symbol, if you look at the Sanskrit character for Om, there is a crescent and a dot at the top, separated from the rest. That represents the fourth state, Turiya, or Samadhi.
The fourth state.
It is the state beyond waking, dreaming, or sleeping. Pure consciousness. The silence after the chant is the destination. The sound is just the vehicle to take you from the noise of the world into that transcendent silence.
It's amazing how much depth is packed into one single syllable.
That's the theme of the whole book, really. Whether it's a pose, a diet, a relationship, or a sound, Iyengar shows that if you go deep enough, everything connects back to the spirit.
So if we synthesize this, Iyengar is offering a path that takes us from being a living corpse, sick, lazy, doubting, to a state of unalloyed happiness.
And the beauty is the tool he gives you is something you already have, your body and your breath. You don't need to buy equipment. You just need to show up.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one specific concept about the breath from the sources that I found really moving. The Ajapa mantra.
This is beautiful. Iyengar says that every living creature, whether they know it or not, is constantly praying.
How so?
Listen to your breath. With every inhalation, the sound is so. With every exhalation, the sound is ham. So ham.
And translated?
He is I. I am he. It's a realization of the divinity within. He says we breathe this prayer thousands of times a day. The yogi just becomes aware of it. You are offering your breath to the Lord and receiving the breath of life back as a blessing.
It turns the most basic biological function into a sacrament. You're praying just by staying alive.
Exactly. It means you are never disconnected from the divine.
I want to leave you with a quote Iyengar includes from the Song of the Soul, or Atma Satkam. It's a verse that strips away everything we think we are.
It's a very powerful dismantling of identity.
It goes, I am neither ego nor reason. I am neither food nor eating nor yet the eater. Consciousness and joy incarnate. Bliss of the blissful am I.
Bliss of the blissful am I.
So here is the question for you to carry into your work. If you are not your body, and you are not your job, and you are not even your own thoughts, then what is left?
That is the question.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.